All right, I'm sorry, Milwaukee fans, but this is not something new. This is not spur of the moment. Even before the Dame injury, we were all thinking about this particular moment. If it were up to me, if I was Milwaukee, I would not trade Giannis. If I was Giannis, I'd probably want to stay in Milwaukee and just be a legend in Milwaukee forever. I mean, he already is that for sure, but you get what I'm saying. If I was him, I'd probably just stay in Milwaukee, although the situation is very, very bleak when you look at their young talent and their pick situation. And something you'll probably hear a lot going forward is people telling you Milwaukee doesn't have their pick for the next 5 years or so, which is kind of true. They have their picks, well, some of their picks, right? But they don't own the rights to those picks, meaning either Portland or New Orleans, back all the way back to the Drew Holiday trade, will have the right to swap those picks. So they're still going to get picks in some of those years. So in the event that you keep Giannis, that's even more bleak. You can't move those picks. If you do move Giannis, that doesn't look as bad, right? You're going to be able to keep some of those picks. So let's just assume for a second that Giannis is going to ask out because Milwaukee doesn't really have many ways to get better. Their one way was trading Dame, and now you can't really trade Dame. What does Milwaukee even want in return? I guess the more important question is, where would Giannis want to go? Like, what type of team? The team we keep hearing about is Houston for sure, because they have all the picks, they have all the young guys. My question would be, what young guys are they prioritizing, and which young guys would Milwaukee want? Now, obviously, I think Amin Thompson is on top of the list, even over a Şengün. But when you look at the fact that you'd be getting Giannis, I almost feel like Şengün is a lot higher on the list of names you'd give up if you're Houston. I know that's crazy, but if I'm getting Giannis, I don't know if I want Şengün next to him. If I'm getting Giannis, I think I might prefer Jabari next to him. If I'm getting Giannis and I have a real number one option, I might look at Jalen Green scoring a little bit more favorably than trying to make him be your 1A option. I don't know. I'm actually not the biggest fan of Giannis going to Houston just because, like I said, I don't know what they're feeling about Şengün. I don't like the idea of trying to make Şengün and Giannis fit together. And if you do trade Şengün, I don't know how I feel about Jalen Green still. We still don't know exactly what Amin Thompson's going to be. And then bringing in a guy like Giannis can complicate a lot of those guys' development. Not obviously, if you get Giannis, you get Giannis. I'm not saying bringing in Giannis would hurt. I'm just saying we don't really know yet. And I don't think he would be an easy fit with a lot of their young guys. I don't know. I don't love it. I also don't love them going to get KD either, although that would be a cleaner fit. KD fits with Amin Thompson, fits with Şengün. So I don't know. That's just not one for me, but obviously I would be excited if it happened. And also, like, Houston comes up immediately because they've been rumored in so many deals, right? But when you think about, like, young stars that might be available for Giannis, I think we might, in our minds, be underrating it because we haven't really seen something like this in a while. You know, even the KD trade to Phoenix, KD was in his mid-30s post-Achilles tear. Like, it's not the same. And the Luka deal, which would have been the same, there was no bidding war because we all know what happened there. So this is rare territory. So maybe even someone like Şengün is thinking too low. Not that this would make sense, but would it surprise anyone if, let's say, Franz Wagner was available? Not that Giannis would want to go there, not that the Magic would do that, although they would do that. But that's just a name I don't even think we're thinking about because the NBA hasn't really operated like that. And this would never happen, but we've been hearing the Phoenix Suns trade rumors. Again, this would never happen. But what if the Suns just said, you know what, we'll give you Devin Booker. We'll give you Devin Booker and a couple first. They don't really have first to trade, huh? We'll give you Devin Booker when whatever picks we can. You give us Giannis. And we got Giannis, KD, Bradley Beal, whatever, right? Again, that's never going to happen, but I think our minds might be a little bit too narrow in this situation because this is rarefied air if Giannis does indeed ask out. A team that nobody is talking about that I believe we need to keep a very, very close eye on, especially if they go home in the first round after being the favorite, is the Clippers. Now, what do the Clippers have that Milwaukee would want? Nothing, really. But that's a situation where you could see, oh, Giannis wants to go to LA. Giannis wants to go to a big market team. He wants to go somewhere he can compete. He wants to go somewhere with stars already there and an owner that will not overpay, but an owner that you know is going to do everything he can to build around you. Why not go play with the Clippers and Steve Ballmer? I could just see that happening. Now, again, I don't know what the Clippers would have to give. The Clippers would probably do everything in their power to keep Zoo, but even still, why would Milwaukee want Zoo in this situation? So I don't really know how that's a possibility. But if Giannis does come to them with his list of teams and the Clippers are high on that list and they want to do right by him, I could definitely see a world where we got James Harden, Kawhi, and Giannis next year. I don't know how, but I could see it happening. And you know what? Another reason why that might be a little bit more of a possibility, again, is Milwaukee doesn't own their pick next year. So if they got Norman Powell, Bogdanovich, Derrick Jones Jr., and 5 first-round picks, that might be decent for them. Again, they're probably going to get better offers than that, but I'm just saying if Giannis wants to go to LA, that could be a real possibility. So I don't want to just keep going through every single possibility of a Giannis deal, right? We know Houston's a possibility. I wanted to point out the Clippers as a real possibility. We know we're going to hear the Nets as a real possibility. We're definitely going to hear the Knicks as a possibility. I think somehow we're going to hear Warriors rumors. So everybody's going to be rumored to be going after Giannis. I think the situation in Memphis is interesting, whether it's a Ja trade or a Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. But again, I don't think Giannis wants to go to Memphis. Maybe he does, right? But I don't really see Giannis saying that's where I want to go. And I also don't see the Bucks trading Giannis to somewhere he doesn't really want to go. But the idea of a Giannis, Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey front court, not saying all starting, but that with Desmond Bane, Scottie Pippen Jr. bigger role, or trade Jaren and you have a big three of Giannis, Bane, and Ja. I don't know, something there. Again, that's very, very unlikely. But there's a team where I feel like they might be able to meet somewhere in the middle where it's probably not on Giannis's list, but he might be able to be convinced of going to play there. He gets to stay in the East. It's a big market. He gets to go play with another elite player, quote-unquote elite player. But what about the Hawks? Now, kind of similar to the Grizzlies situation where you could convince me of a deal for Trae Young straight up, not straight up, but Trae Young for Giannis, or more likely in this scenario, Jalen Johnson, a deal centered around Jalen Johnson, who was having a breakout year, an all-star year before he got hurt. And I know it sounds absurd to say right now, considering the injury and considering what Şengün's doing in the playoffs right now, but you might be able to convince yourself it's a similar level of a young star player. Put up 19 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, over a steal and a half per game, over a block per game. That is like pretty elite company. Now, when we're talking about Giannis, it seems pretty crazy to have Jalen Johnson being the centerpiece of a deal, but obviously you would have to throw in a lot of picks. Jalen Johnson, Terrence Mann to make the money work, Kobe Buffkin, and a bunch of picks. But honestly, it sounds crazy to have anybody be the centerpiece of a Giannis deal that's not Shea or Luka. Like, that's why I would not trade Giannis. If I'm Giannis, I'd want to stay in Milwaukee, but I think we all know it's a real possibility that he's gone. So if there was a place that I would want to see Giannis go, I think the Hawks would be a great situation where you got Trae Young still, you got Zachary Ricochet, #1 overall pick. I don't think he's going to be a star player, but I think he's going to be a very good player. If you're able to keep Double O, you got Dyson Daniels, and that 5 right there is a lot to build around. Now, you would have to add shooting around the margins for sure, but we know shooting is something you can get on the margins. We just seen the Bucks get Gary Trent Jr. on the minimum. Like, you could find those guys. Not saying it's ideal to be in that situation, but Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Ricochet, Giannis, Double O. Maybe that's not your starting 5. Maybe you bring like Dyson Daniels off the bench for whatever elite sniper you can find. Like I said, the Bucks got Gary Trent. The Pistons got Malik Beasley, I believe, was on a minimum. Like, you can find these shooter types out there. So maybe you add one of those in the starting lineup, bring Dyson Daniels off the bench, close with him. Sometimes you close with Ricochet, sometimes you close, you know, just mapping it out in my mind. But that lineup is crazy defensively. You got 2 offenses all into themselves, and Trae Young and Giannis that could play with either unit. Like, they would be running up and down the court, and that would just be a very, very fun team. And I think I would prefer that. I would prefer him go be with a player like Trae Young. I would prefer Trae Young stay in Atlanta, and that would just be a cool team, a team that is very good right now, a team that could still grow in the future with Dyson and Ricochet becoming even better players, like Double O becoming a better player still. I would love that situation. If Giannis does want out, I don't know if Milwaukee or I don't know if Atlanta will ever even come up in a discussion. But to me, that's what I would love to see happen. More so than Brooklyn trades all their picks for Giannis and then goes out and tries to get, maybe they would go out and try to get Trae Young in that scenario. Actually, I could see that happening, but you get what I'm saying. That defense, the passing of Trae Young with Giannis, I think Giannis would make Trae Young be off the ball more and get rid of some of those bad habits of Trae. Even though this year he was off ball a lot more. He set a lot more off ball screens this year. Like Trae Young did a lot this year. But I think Giannis would, of course, open the game up for him, get him easier looks so we can see that efficiency go back up for Trae. The drive to the basket, it would not be great spacing, but Giannis on the roll would open up that floater for Trae. I would just love to see that. But this is really off the top of my head. We'll have all offseason to really talk about it, unless Giannis comes out and just makes it clear he doesn't want to be traded. Maybe he'll do that and this video was a waste of time, but if I could choose a destination for Giannis, it would be Atlanta. You guys let me know in the comments down below where you'd want to see him go. Please like, comment, subscribe. It will mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.